This is one of the reasons why real estate is so powerful is you can buy a $100,000 property with 20% down. And this is through traditional financing. We're not getting creative or anything. This is something you can just go to your regular bank and get. For that, you can't do that with stocks, right? You can't buy $100,000 worth of stocks with $20,000. So that's one of the reasons why real estate is so powerful. All right, so I am here today to talk to you about the opportunity of a lifetime. Self-starters are needed. Are you looking to reach financial independence? I think most of you are, right? Good crowd for that. Have you thought about working for yourself, setting your own hours? Good news, we want you. There's a unique opportunity available right now. Did you know that you can make incredible amounts of money and reach financial freedom by making other people happy? How, you ask? Trump NFTs. These are priceless gifts for anyone, but you can have them for $100. By selling these to all your family and friends that watch Fox News, you can reach financial independence in no time. But wait, there's more. For the CNN lovers in your life, we also have Biden NFTs. I'm just kidding. Well, I'm here to talk to you today about how to low-cost refi. So there are a couple of ground rules. One, everything I say is for entertainment purposes only. Two, don't take anything I say too seriously because we're all living in a simulation anyway, and this is make-believe. So I'm going to do a little bit about me. I am a CODA. That means I'm a child of deaf adults. So my first language, sign language, my family's deaf. And if you've seen the movie CODA, it's pretty popular. Very accurate, except I can't sing for shit. Single parent household. So my parents divorced when I was young, and my father ended up passing away when I was 12. It was a very humble upbringing. Born and raised in Alabama. Most of you are probably surprised to see that I am wearing shoes. I will say we had shoes there and we had indoor plumbing most of the time. I am a 3-time recipient of You Could Do Better. 3 different people. You look at me now, you might think, man, this guy's got his life together. 3 different girls I dated, their parents told them, you could do better than this guy. One of them had the nerve to say it to my face. I don't know if that's like ruder or better. I don't know. I'm still torn about it. I did go to a local community college. This was not like me like hacking anything. I just happened to be poor enough that I got a lot of Pell Grants, and I genuinely just didn't even know that I could qualify for student loans. And so I went to a local community college where luckily I met my now wife. We got married in 2015. We found out about financial independence in 2016. Luckily, we found out about it pretty early on, so we weren't really set in our ways. It was very easy for us to change our lifestyle and become more intentional about our money. And we bought our first rental property in 2017. So pretty early on, we decided we were going to focus on real estate. And we retired in 2019 with 10 units. So we were very aggressive during those years. Since then, we've traveled to 15 different countries, all while self-managing our 5 long-term rentals, our 3 short-term rentals, and 2 medium-term rentals. So refi with rentals. So we're going to talk today about long-term rentals. Everybody knows about long-term rentals. You lease your place month to month for typically 6 to 12 months a year. Then there's short-term rentals, Airbnbs, vacation rentals, things like that. And then now there's medium-term rentals, right? So it's like a nice in-between, and we're going to discuss that as well. So the good news is I have 3 examples of people that have reached financial independence using each of these methodologies, right? 3 real life examples. So first I'm going to tell you about my friend. I'm going to retire early. And then we've got my friend, I want to be free from work. And finally, now I'm going to admit, I don't actually know this person, but I've heard his story and it's a really good one. There's one to travel the world full time. And all 3 of these people, ironically, made $100,000 a year and they spent $50,000 a year. So they had a 50% savings rate. So they were doing really good. How much do they need to have invested? And how long is it going to take them to get there, depending on what their methodology is? So long-term rentals, that is what I'm going to retire early decided to invest in. She's very specific about the properties that she's looking for. I highly suggest this. Niche down into exactly what you're looking for. You're not trying to buy every property on the market. You've got a very specific thing that you're looking for. She's looking for a $100,000 property that will rent for $1,100. And these are all very realistic numbers, right? A little over the 1% rule if you're familiar with that. And she's looking for $250 a month in cash flow. We're going to do some quick maths. So 50,000 divided by 3,000, which is $250 a month times 12, is 16.67 doors is what it's going to take Ima to retire. Unfortunately, you can't buy half doors. You can partnership and stuff like that, but we're going to round up. She needs to get 17 doors. So this is one of the reasons why real estate is so powerful is you can buy a $100,000 property with 20% down. And this is through traditional financing. We're not getting creative or anything. This is something you can just go to your regular bank and get. So for that, you can't do that with stocks, right? You can't buy $100,000 worth of stocks with $20,000. So that's one of the reasons why real estate is so powerful. And 20,000 times 17 is 340,000. That's what she needs to invest to have enough rental properties. That is going to take 6.8 years of investing to get to that point. So there are costs that are associated with long-term rentals. We're going to go through this pretty quickly. Mortgage, so principal, taxes, insurance, and principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, and maintenance and CapEx, vacancy. The total costs are $850 a month. I should mention the $100,000 property, that mortgage is between a 6.5% to 7% interest rate. So it's pretty accurate for today. And remember, the rents coming in are $1,100. She's costing $850 a month. So she's got her $250 a month cash flow. If she wanted to take a more hands-off approach, then she's going to need to get a property manager, and they cost 10%. So she either needs to find properties that cash flow $350 a month and make up for that cost, or she's going to have to buy 11 more properties, which is going to add a few more years to her working life. Or she can choose to manage it herself, which is what I suggest. And that includes monthly rent collection. So you can automate that using online services. There are a few of those. Address maintenance issues. So this is going to be, maintenance requests, anything comes up. Again, most of that can be mostly automated, having the tenants submit that online. Tracking income and expenses. Pretty basic day. Not a whole lot involved there. Lease renewals. So at least once a year, you're going to have to deal with lease renewals. And if you're not very good at it, you're going to have to deal with tenant placement. So tenant placement includes screenings, showings, and then again, doing the leases. All of that can be done online as well. The other thing that's going to take a lot of time is posting on social media every day about how her returns beat the stock market and that stocks are a scam. That's a daily endeavor. The weekly time is 15 minutes a week if you can limit your social media time. It's a real sap, I'm telling you. And the stress level is minimal on this. Then we're going to talk about short-term rentals. This is what Ivana Be Free from Work decided to focus on. $100,000 property, same thing. She's looking for $2,200 a month in gross rents. And that is going to be $1,041.67 of cash flow. It's a very specific number because it made the math easy. But it is also a realistic number. We actually cash flow more than that every month on ours. So the quick math, again, this is $12,500 a year in cash flow. So she only needs 4 doors as opposed to 17 doors. 100,000, 20% down, same math there. 20,000 plus 10,000 because you're going to have to furnish the property. So there are some upfront costs that are associated with it, but it's much less than the acquisition cost of another property. So it's $30,000 per property to get started. And that is going to equal $120,000. And that is going to take 2.5 years to reach financial independence by investing in short-term rentals. So there are costs associated with short-term rentals, same mortgage, maintenance and CapEx is a little bit higher. You're having to replace more things. Vacancy rates, utilities and internet. You may think that the vacancy rate is low. I think that the vacancy rate has already baked in the gross rents, actually bakes in the vacancy rate because it may be open for a couple days here and there. Gifts and supplies, and then bribes, which Emily told me not to put. So we're going to ignore that. And so your total expenses are $1,150. So remember the gross rents are $2,200. So you're left with $1,050. Again, if Ivana wanted to take a more hands-off approach, she could get a property manager. Short-term rental property managers between 20 and 30%, most of the time on the lower end, depending on where you're at. And she's going to have to find properties that cash flow $1,300 a month, or she's going to have to buy one more property to pay for that. So now she only needs 5 doors as opposed to the 26 doors that, 28 doors. Yeah. Well, the 17 plus the 11. Right? With a property manager, right? Short-term rental management, you could choose to do it all yourself. I suggest it. So you're focusing on guest experience. This is going to be check-in messages. This is going to be their code to get in the door, everything like that. And the goal of this is to preemptively answer all their questions very early on. And so what you do is you should send them all the information they're going to need, more than they're going to need. And then we also send a YouTube video of us at the property showing them around. And so that way we can answer a lot of their questions before they ever have them. You've got to focus on the cleanings. So this is also associated with guest experience, but now you're having to manage a cleaner. So you're scheduling the cleanings. And then sometimes they have like a fire that you need to put out. They'll message you and tell you like, hey, somebody had a seance in your house or something. There's maintenance requests. So you're going to have to deal with the same maintenance requests that you would with a long-term rental, but also you're going to have to deal with replacing items, anything from coffee makers to couches and everything in between. There's bookkeeping involved. That takes a little bit more time than the long-term rental does because you're having more income quicker, right? And so it's not as steady as far as, you're receiving a monthly rent. You may have a booking one week, you may not the next week, and it kind of ebbs and flows. Plus you have more costs associated, so you're having to track that more. The other thing that you're doing is hoping that the person who's staying in your place isn't selling drugs. I'm going to openly tell you one of our best guests, I think, is a drug dealer. He books our place and he comes in, he books it for 3 days, goes in for like 30 minutes, leaves. There's nothing ever used. It's the perfect guest, right? Because he doesn't use anything. It's the weirdest scenario. I'm assuming that's what he does. I actually don't know, but there's not a whole lot of explanation for why somebody would be there for such a short amount of time. So the weekly time spent managing that is around 1 hour. The stress level is occasional. So there are bouts of stress, right? Now we're going on to medium-term rentals. So you may remember this is what Juan to Travel the World full-time is focusing on, our good friend Juan. So he's also looking for a $100,000 property. He's looking for $1,655 in gross rents. And that's going to leave him with $523.83 of cash flow. Quick maths. So 50,000 divided by 6,250, which is 520.83 times 12, is 8 doors. So right in between the two. $100,000 times 20%, $20,000. It's going to cost him the additional $10,000 to furnish the property. And so 30,000 times 8 is $240,000. That is going to take 4.8 years if you're investing $50,000 a year. There are costs associated with medium-term rentals. It's all the same cost as short-term rentals, but you have less maintenance occasionally and less gifts and supplies because people are there for longer, so you're not supplying them with toilet paper for the 3 months that they're there, right? That's an unrealistic amount. So you can see all the expenses there. $1,655 minus $1,135, which is the expenses, leaves you with $520 a month of cash flow. If Juan wanted to take a more hands-off approach, he can also get the same property manager, 20% off the top. And that is going to, he has to find properties that are $650 a month, or he has to buy 2 more properties. So now he's at 10 doors. The management, I suggest doing it yourself. You have to focus on guest experience. The biggest difference between a short-term rental guest experience and the long-term rental guest experience is you have to do less of it. So for a short-term rental, there are anywhere from 5 to 10 people that could be staying in your place in a month. And so each one of those people are going to have questions that they have. But if you're doing a medium-term rental, someone checks in, they're there for 3 months, they figure out all the questions pretty early on, and then they're just there doing their thing for the next 2 months, hopefully. You also deal with the cleaning. So that's less. It's just less scheduling because they're there for 3 months again. So you might have 4 or 5 cleanings a year. There's maintenance. So again, the same thing, right? And because someone's there longer, you may have a little bit more wear and tear. But there's also one person that you're talking to that's dealing with all these things, and they may be a little more receptive to sending over like, oh, hey, I noticed this issue, as opposed to somebody in the short-term rental that may just ignore it, and then you're hoping that your cleaner catches it. There's bookkeeping. It's also less effort than the short-term rental, less effort than the short-term rental, but more effort than the long-term rental. And then you're going to lie awake at night, beating yourself up over an unexplainable 4-star review. That's the longest part of your management experience. Weekly time's about 30 minutes a week, right in the middle. You might notice a trend here. The stress level is sporadic. So I know a lot of you are probably asking about the stress level. So I found a graph from a double-blind peer-reviewed study that I made up. And here you can see some of the information, right? So as you see, I'm going to retire early, decided to focus on the long-term rentals, right? And so they were working. And so they had some bouts of stress. There was like a lot of effort going on at that time, but pretty quickly, about year 8, that stress level drops off. And then they had to deal with an eviction, so it peaked up there. But then after that, it's just every few years, they have to deal with a turnover or something like that. So it's pretty low stress effort. I want to be free from work. chose to do the short-term rentals. So it's very high stress pretty quickly because they were accumulating properties and also managing those properties while also working, but also pretty quickly that drops off. And then they just have the occasional stress that they're dealing with. Somebody didn't check out on time. Somebody's dealing drugs on their property. Somebody had a seance. That happened. That's why I keep bringing that up. And then wanted to travel the world full time, right in the middle, right? And as you can see, the stress levels are associated with how much money you're making, how much effort is involved. Now, I will mention this. Logan mentioned it. He had a 50% savings rate, and his working life was at 13 years. So you may see this is where if you had, let's say, a stress level of a 6 for work, but you actually have added so many years of that. So I get the don't grind yourself to death to get there, but if you can do it in 2 years, that's a short grind. There are pros and cons to short-term rentals, medium-term rentals, long-term rentals. Personal use, you can use a short-term rental for personal use. I have blocked ours off multiple times this year for either us to live in or for my sister to come in and visit family and friends, especially if there's like something going on with our family or some emergency. Then that is a huge benefit that I think can't be overstated. The fact that you can offer your space for somebody to come and stay for as long as they need to. Medium-term rentals, you can do that. It's just less often because people are typically there for months. So you could have someone there for 3 months and then you could block it off for a week for someone to use it. Or you block it off for months also, but you can do that. Long-term rentals, it's much harder to do because someone signed a lease for a year. Good luck convincing your tenant to let you share your space. Legal issues. Short-term rentals do have legal issues. They're just different. Each of them have different issues. So sometimes a short-term rental could be illegal in where you're at. And they can change that on a whim pretty easily. Medium-term rentals, you also have that same issue with it could be illegal where you're at if you're not renting it long enough, but you also have all the negatives of a long-term rental because someone could establish residency depending on where you're at. And so because of that, you may have to deal with evictions or something like that. Long-term rentals, same thing, right? You have legal issues. It's harder to evict somebody. They've established tenancy. And so all of them have legal issues. They're just different types of legal issues. So you're essentially choosing what type you want to do. Short-term rentals are not low effort. I think you can automate most of it to make it incredibly low effort, but it is more work than the others for sure. Medium-term rental is a little bit more low effort because you're only dealing with one person every few months and it's not that hard. Long-term rentals, we've gone months and months without dealing with a single long-term rental, whether or not it's a maintenance issue, whether or not it's a rent collection. All of that can be automated very, very easily. So it's pretty low effort. Short-term rentals have higher income for sure. That's just part of the process of having a nightly rate as opposed to you're discounting it for someone to be there a long time, but you're also front loading that by furnishing the space, offering utilities, all that kind of thing. Medium-term rentals also have more income, and long-term rentals have the lowest amount of income, but it's more stable, less stress. Speaking of which, short-term rentals, the income, it can be less stable. It depends on what market you're investing in. So in some places it's very seasonal, and other places they stay busy all year. Medium-term rentals are more stable because you're getting like travel nurses, you're getting people on work assignments and things like that. And in our experience, we've had same-day turnovers with medium-term rentals for 6 months in a row. And so like we haven't had a single night vacant. And then long-term rentals are incredibly stable. Our typical tenant that we have right now, we have 5 long-term rentals, and the average length right now is 3.5 years, I think is what our tenants are. So our approach, we've chosen to combine all 3 strategies. So we're refi using long-term rentals, short-term rentals, and medium-term rentals. And then we're just allowing our investments, our index funds to grow in the background while we're living off of this. Proceed with caution. Okay. So you've been warned. So this is the metaphor. We're currently rolling along on our refi sources like wheels on a bike. We're still pedaling, which is managing. But if we ever get tired of that, all we have to do is put our kickstand down, which is our index funds, and chill. And Emily found this action shot of me on my bike, so I thought we might show that. So in conclusion, I'm here to tell you that we are 2 regular people that lived in a flyover state. Like we invest in the 106th largest market. So hang on, guys, and we combined made 6 figures, but neither of us ever made 6 figures in our life. And we did it in a very quick method because we were both focused and dedicated to the path. And if we can do it, y'all can definitely do it too.